Hi, everybody. It is such a joy to be here and to meet all of you. Whenever Matt emailed me and asked if I'd be interested in coming to talk today, he said, I love when you talk. You're a great presenter, which I was like, oh, Matt, thanks. And he's like, what do you want to talk about? And the number one thing I'm asked about all of the time in the entrepreneurial community is how in the world did you do all of the pivots to get to where you are today? Because I've owned the same company for 8 years, but it looks nothing like it did whenever I started. And so today what I want to do is I want to tell you my story, and I want to tell you how I made the decision to pivot and to niche and to walk away and what drove that. And hopefully through that story I'll be able to share a bunch of little takeaways and some processes and tools that you can use to help guide decisions in your own entrepreneurial journey. So with that, so who in the world is Hetty and Hop? So if you look at us today, we are a healthcare marketing agency. So we work with lots of large companies like BJC, St. Louis Children's Hospital, and WashU locally. We work with large health insurance companies. We work with organizations that are trying to improve social determinants of health. So for example, to provide resources to people that are on Medicare but perhaps can't afford their medication. So Planned Parenthood is my client. So we work with a lot of organizations that just feel good. But it wasn't always that way. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about my journey. I grew up in rural Missouri on a farm. So my parents did not have any money, no entrepreneurial backgrounds. Whenever we had to buy basketball shoes, because I played basketball in high school, my parents literally wouldn't go grocery shopping that week. So it was a really big lesson in growing up with very limited means and having a solid job and having a 401k was something that was very, very valued in my family. That wasn't what I wanted to do. So I went to Maryville University. Let me back up a little bit. I didn't want to work on the farm, and the rule was if you don't have another way to make income, you have to work on the family farm in the summer, meaning literally driving a tractor and baling hay. That's terrible to a middle schooler. So I taught myself how to hand code websites, and I started a web development business so I could sit inside in the AC and be on AM with my friends, texting them. And I did that all through middle school and high school. So in that situation, it was entrepreneurial efforts exclusively for convenience and avoiding hard work. Whenever I went to college at Maryville University, I had to pay my own way through. So I did night and weekend program, and I had a full-time job at a healthcare recruiting company. Looking back, it was the best decision I ever made because I had 4 years of real experience when I graduated, whereas everybody else was just starting the year they graduated. And so I took an opportunity and I moved to Seattle when I graduated, and I started my first marketing agency. I grew it for 3 years, and then my first son was born 3 months early. He was 2 pounds, as big as an iPhone. He was in a incubator in the hospital NICU for 77 days. And at that time, I had somebody come and court me to buy my business, and I said, get it away from me, I am done. So I sold my first business. I was then a stay-at-home mom for 3 months, not my jam. So then when Amazon called, I said, yes, so I went to go work at Amazon. Got to see kind of behind the scenes about everything within that large organization. It was a really cool learning experience. But like many people from Missouri, I then wanted to boomerang back home to be by family, so I moved back home. And then shortly after, I started this company. Sorry about that, folks. But then health crisis struck again. In January, I was in Sedona on a fun little vacation with my husband, and I had an ischemic stroke. Half my face drooped, had to go to the emergency room. Terrifying. I was able to get back home to St. Louis, and they did a bunch of tests, and they figured out that I had a hole in my heart that was allowing blood clots to go directly to my brain. But they said, don't worry, it's really unlikely that you'll have another one. I was even planning a trip to Iceland with my kids, and they said, go to Iceland. It's no big deal. Whenever you get home, it's fine. Well, a month later, I had another stroke. So they said, never mind, don't go to Iceland. We're going to do your heart surgery immediately. So we had heart surgery in March, and now I'm completely fine. But January to June, I wasn't even able to work an hour a day. I had what's called a post-stroke headache. It only impacts young women who have strokes. So as you could imagine, there's very limited research to understand why it happens, how it happens. But it was my second health crisis when I owned a business, but this one was very, very different. And the experience and outcome was very different because I did those three things. I pivoted, I niched, and I walked away throughout the process. And so I was in a much better place to be able to step back, take care of my health, and then come back into my business now. And I'm back to full-time operations and even traveling for business at this point. So the outcome was very, very different. So I have owned this agency for 8 years. It'll be 8 years in November. And it started being known simply as Anvil. So I started with a business partner, and we were marketing, digital marketing, web development, and design. It kind of just happened by happenstance that I had a partner. I know a lot of you, when you're doing a startup and then you meet somebody else that kind of wants to do the same thing, and you kind of gel and you think you're kind of in the same trajectory. It's like, oh, let's just be business partners, right? A lot of people end up making that decision. I made that decision. And so we started the business together, and we kept the brand that he had had. A while later, we rebranded to something called Creative Anvil, trying to make it a little bit more marketing oriented. And at the same time, I wanted to do everything, so I also started a SaaS platform called ReadyBuild. ReadyBuild was a platform for residential construction companies, helping them put proposals together and then manage projects. Mosby Building Arts was our #1 client, and so we built the tool for them and then licensed it to go sell it publicly. And we had quite a bit of success with it, but as you can imagine, it's very, very different from running a marketing agency, right? Your brain is absolutely split from two very competing priorities. So then we pivoted again. This was in 2018. We decided to rebrand because everybody thought that we only did creative, but we did lots of analytics work. So then it's like, well, crap, we need to rebrand. So how are we going to rebrand? And so we're like, well, we're not going to totally start a new company. We'll just pivot a little bit. And that resulted in being called Anvil Analytics and Insights. So there's a theme, right? We kept that same word, which I never even liked. I just kept it because it was his brand. So I was very unemotionally attached to it. But it was a roaring success. In 2019, we were named the #1 fastest growing company in St. Louis by the Business Journal. We grew over 4,000% from 18 to 19. Yeah, we did $7 million in revenue. We had over 40 employees. We were agency of record for Ascension, managing all of their marketing across the country. It was a huge, huge contract, but also we had lots of other great relationships. But at that time, healthcare was only about 50% of our overall revenue. I wanted it to be 100%. I felt really good about it. I loved what I did. It really made me feel like I had a purpose. Some of our other clients were like law firms and other SaaS platforms that were just like, you know, like I don't really feel like I'm helping anybody. And so I used the opportunity, let me turn the Wi-Fi off. I used the opportunity to, in 2020, as everyone knows, most people's businesses were absolutely modified. I won't say devastated. Some people's went really, really, great and successful, and then other people's tanked. Ours was kind of in the middle, but it was extremely stressful. Most of our clients paused most of their marketing work. We ended up doing 50% pay and 50% work for most of our employees versus doing mass layoffs. It was a really tumultuous time. But I used that as an opportunity to buy out my business partner. So he was kind of ready to move on. I was ready to be a sole business owner. And so I bought him out and became the sole owner in February of 2021. And so as I was looking around the new business that I bought, I still felt like it was a suit that didn't fit properly. Didn't really feel like me, and it didn't feel like something that I could really grow and expand with my whole heart behind it. And so I took a minute and I stepped back and I said, I'm good at what I do, marketing and strategy. I'm good at it. I've done it my entire career. So I still want to stay in the same ecosystem. So I walked away from ReadyBuild, signed that over to him as part of the deal. I no longer wanted to divert my efforts into multiple directions. And I decided to look at all of the work I'd done over the past 6 years and figure out really what made the most sense for me emotionally. What really gave me, what did I have interest in, what did I have expertise in, and what was the most profitable. And for me, that was healthcare. It felt really, really good. But the problem was, at that point, about 60% of our clients were not healthcare. So that's really difficult when you look at those revenue numbers and say, hey, I want to announce to the entire world that I'm a healthcare agency, but oh crap, most of our revenue is not right now from healthcare. So how am I going to do that? Well, I ripped off the fucking Band-Aid. I just did it. I was like, this is hell or high water. I'm going to do what I feel good about. I want to live a life that is true to me. And so we rebranded as Hetty and Hop, exclusively focused on healthcare, and I spent the next year partnering with other marketing agencies that I knew the owners of and trusted, and I handed that work over to them at no cost, just as a good partner to make sure my clients had good continuity. So it was really difficult. At the same time, I had 100% turnover in employees. 100% people. That is, like, there's 0 people working for me right now that worked for me in 2020. Everybody that joined in 2021, though, is still with me. We haven't lost a single person. So we rebuilt, and it worked really, really well. But man, it was a journey. So I really look back on that, and I'm really just proud of myself for what I was able to accomplish and not lose my mind. Honestly, as an entrepreneur, I think that's something we all need to be proud of. So I feel like every day I was just channeling calm and patience, trying to rebuild the brand. And before I move on, one thing I want to talk about is the brand and why it means so much to me. So Hetty and Hop is a nod to Hedy Lamarr and Grace Hopper. They are the 2 women that are the reason why the internet exists the way that it does today. So Grace Hopper, she was celebrated by society her entire career. She was in the US military. She invented the first coding language, but it was owned by the government because she was a US government employee at the time. But she was celebrated with a battleship. There's a museum named after her at UMSL. We actually went and visited it for one of our all-hand field trips. It was super fun. It's a very cute little museum. But Hedy Lamarr, on the other hand, was not treated well by society or by folks in the technology industry because she didn't show up the way that they expected her to. She came here from Europe, and during World War II, she wanted to help. She wanted to help America somehow, her new home. And so she developed something called the Hopper technology. And what it does is it actually prevents all of the Nazi radars from detecting the US submarines. But because she didn't show up the way that people wanted her to, the US government refused to acknowledge her patent, used her technology anyway, and she died penniless and without any understanding of the impact that her inventions had on the world. It is the foundation of Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. So the brand to me was, again, like, if I'm going to take a big leap and lose 60% of my revenue and 100% of my employees, what does it mean to me? Like, why am I doing this? And I looked at all of my clients. About 80% of my clients are female. In healthcare, it's always female decision makers, which I love. But if there are males, and about almost half of my employees are males, it's males that love sitting at a table with a strong woman. They do not feel intimidated. They feel like they're sitting next to an equal. And that, for me, I wanted to put a stake in the ground and say, this is who I am. This is the kinds of clients and employees I want to work with. So I made a very loud public pronouncement with that. So thank you. Thank you. So why was this worth it to me? So I decided that I wanted to set a really big goal because, again, what is the good of doing something in a business if you're just focused on revenue and income? So what I decided to do was set a goal that in 5 years, we want to achieve 100 million healthcare touch points and 10 million healthcare connections. So touch points mean helping people see the Siteman brand. If somebody Googles breast cancer second opinion, University of Wisconsin's ad shows up and it leads them down a patient journey where they can request an appointment with the physician that specializes in their kind of cancer that they're battling. So and 10 million healthcare connections is when people actually schedule an appointment or find a doctor. So for me, it was all about meaning and purpose. And we're on track in the first year. We're at 98%, and it's only September for year 1 of measurement. So we're super excited about that. But for me, part of niching was really saying, okay, how can I modify my business to have a greater purpose? How can I wake up every day and feel even better about the work that I do and the time that I put in? And for me, this was one way to physically manifest that. Another thing that I did in 2021 is I implemented something called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. Quick show of hands, who's heard of that before? Okay, cool. EOS is a system that makes sure everybody on your team understands your long and short-term goals, and it gets you paddling in the same direction. It is phenomenal. It is transformational to an organization. Once you are generating revenue and have a couple of employees investigating into a system, it doesn't have to be EOS. EOS is just what I chose, but investigating into something that really allows you to organize your business goals at a high level and then come up with smaller goals that are shorter sprints to organize things is very, very helpful. This is one of the main things that I credit being able to not work for the first 6 months of the year, is implementing EOS. Process, 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 right? The more you can document things, the more you can communicate things, the more everybody has alignment. There's a really great book called Traction, and Traction is the book that explains EOS. So even if you're not at the point in your startup where you're ready to implement a program, buying that book will just give you some cool ideas about ways that you could structure your meetings or ways that you could outline your goals and communicate your goals. So it's a very good read for anybody launching a business. So a couple of questions I asked myself as I decided to either pivot or niche. The first is really stepping back and saying, who are my people? Who am I in a room with and it fills me with joy and light? I am a grown-ass adult. I can choose where I spend my days. I want to spend my days with people that fill me with light. And so for me, that was my most important business decision when I was either choosing to pivot, niche, or walk away, is who fills me with light. ReadyBuild was easy to walk away with because I didn't connect with people in that industry at an emotional level. I was great at it, right? Who cares? I can be just as great at that in another industry. If I didn't feel good going into those meetings, I'm walking away. Healthcare, literally filled with light. Like walking through a children's hospital, and I know that I'm helping people find appointments and schedule meetings with doctors feels very, very good. So for me, who are my people? For me, it is healthcare people. So asking yourself who your people are and modifying your world so you can spend more time around those people is a key question. This is a question that one of my dear friends in EO, which is Entrepreneurial Organizations, asked me and had us go through at one of our annual retreats. So Entrepreneurial Organization is a group, it's worldwide. You have to be $1 million in revenue or up, and they have groups all over the country, but you meet in a mastermind forum of up to 10 people, and you meet once a quarter. Well, luckily one of my members was actually a life coach, so it was really awesome. We'd go to different retreats and he'd facilitate things. One of the things that he asked though is, where do you want to be in 15 years? And we had to sit down and actually imagine your life in 15 years. And that for me was really helpful because 15 is a weird number, right? Like for me, so I'm turning 40 in November, so I would be 54. That's a weird age. It's not retirement age. It's not, there's no trigger. Most people imagine their retirement. So where do you want to be, halfway through that? And then that can help you set your goals and priorities of what you need to push and what you need to do from a revenue and profitability perspective or lifestyle perspective. It's not all about making millions of dollars. Many times it's about prioritizing other things that are important as well. Where can I shine? So this is a really important question and was really helpful for me whenever I was deciding to niche down specifically into healthcare, because I went to a healthcare conference and looked around and realized they are 15 years behind consumer marketing. They don't have technology figured out. They don't have analytics figured out. I can come here and really be a star. And it worked. It's really paid off. So it isn't my belief that you need to avoid competitive industries or competitive spaces. It's just really understanding your personal value proposition and then imagining yourself in those spaces and see if it's a bunch of noise or if you really think that you can stand out. It's a really important question as you're making that decision. And then the last one is, what did I love, or what do I love learning about? So I have talked to so many entrepreneurs that have started businesses that have drained them emotionally. They've had to really just work to be able to create that business because it's in an industry that they thought there was opportunity in, but they didn't have a passion for it. I can read about healthcare, even on the clinical side, and I have nothing to do with the clinical side, for days. It's fascinating to me, and that made it really easy to decide to niche. So as you're deciding really trajectory-wise where you want to go, the biggest piece of advice I can give you, in addition to the other ones, is if you were going on a vacation at a beach, this decision should be something that you want to bring a book about this industry to the beach because you love it that much. It's not something that you want to get a vacation from. It's something that you really want to incorporate into your life. So one of the things that I think entrepreneurs struggle with quite a bit, and I struggle with this quite a bit. I know the prior speaker was talking a little bit about imposter syndrome. I will tell you, I've been in enough boardrooms with people that I don't think should be there that I no longer suffer from imposter syndrome. I really don't. So I don't deal with that. But what I do have struggle with is a concept called the gap and the gain. So here's a good example. So you are starting, you've gone on your journey, but gosh, you haven't hit your goal yet. Maybe your goal is to grow and sell a company. Gosh, you haven't sold it yet. That's so hard and frustrating, right? You're not quite there. What I encourage all of you to do, and what my leadership team does on a quarterly basis, is we appreciate the gain. But look how far we've come. Oh my goodness, we're not here yet, but look what we've done. And it really reframes the entire conversation. It's great to be goal-oriented, but you're not going to reach those goals overnight. Really stop and celebrate those wins. I'll say that before I modified the business into Heady and Hop, whenever we were named the #1 biggest company, I didn't even go out and celebrate because I was so focused on other goals. I didn't even pause and do anything exciting. Like, how sad is that? Life is so short, and I know that now. I cannot believe that I did not do anything to celebrate. And so I'm really being much more conscientious now to really appreciate the gain and the progress that myself and our organization has made throughout the journey. Another thing that I've done a lot over the last year is an exercise called Delegate and Elevate. And if you're looking to really be in what's called your zone of genius, which is where you're just in the flow, right? You love what you do every day, you get energy from your work, and you're not drained at the end of the day, you need to be in your zone of genius. So this is an exercise that everyone on my leadership team does once a quarter. And anytime we're hiring a new team member for a department, say a project manager, we have every team member do this exercise. So what is it? Throughout your day, for an entire week, write down every single activity you do and label it. Do you love it and you're great at it? Like for me, meeting new prospective clients and going to conferences. I love it and I'm great at it. Really, that fills me with joy when I do that. I like it and I'm good at it. And making pitch decks, right? Like, yeah, I'm good at it, but it doesn't fill me with joy. I don't like it, but I'm good at it. This is analytics work. Oh, I don't like it, but I can do it. And then don't like it and bad, accounting and bookkeeping, 100%. That's the first hire in every company that I create is an accounting person. And then what you do is the lower half is gone. Get rid of it, delegate it, or outsource it. And so, for example, if we're hiring a new person on the project management team, we have 3 people on the team right now, we're hiring a 4th. We look at the 3 people's lower buckets and we turn that into a job description. Because you know why? Somebody loves this. Somebody is so excited about this work. It just doesn't have to be you. And so that mindset shift of appreciating and understanding that everybody's different is important. One quick little divergence. Whenever I shut my business, the physical office down, I finally subleased the space the week before my heart surgery in March. Thank you, I was so excited. But that meant we had to move everything out within 1 week's notice, and I wasn't allowed to pick anything up. They were afraid I was gonna have another stroke, so I had to just sit there while the moving company and my team packed everything up. So I was like, just put it all in my basement. I'll figure it out later. 10,000 square foot of stuff in a little basement is not a good idea. Everything was to the ceiling, and I was so overwhelmed. But then I had an idea because of this to hire a basement lady. Best investment ever. And I call her that with love. I say it to her face. She loves it. We chuckle. She loved going through my boxes, creating piles of HDMI cords and whiteboard markers, and then listing it on Facebook Marketplace. So really understand that if it is in your lower 2 quadrants, somebody out there that's in their upper 2 quadrants. So do not drain yourself emotionally. And then I think this is the last one. The last thing that I'll say is always keep in mind 90 days. So a lot of studies have been done that the longest humans can actually focus is 90 days. So all of these year-long plans are so cute. What are you going to do in 90 days? Right? You can have a year-long plan. You should. And you should have a 3-year and a 5-year plan. But you need to break it down into bite-sized 90-day projects. Otherwise, you're going to lose your momentum and you're going to lose your interest in executing it. The EOS system that I use that I talked about, we set 90-day rocks. And the idea of a rock is if you have a jar and you have rocks, pebbles, and sand being the thing that takes up all of your time but doesn't really matter, pebbles being the things that take up a lot of time and kind of matter, and rocks being the things that truly move your business forward, which one should you put in the jar first? The rocks, right? And then you can put these smaller things in and you'll still get things done. That is very similar to this concept. When you're thinking about making a big business decision, right? If you're thinking about, hey, I'm going to niche down the area that I'm focused on, I'm going to pivot to a whole new area of focus, or maybe it's time to walk away from this idea and come up with something completely new. I always challenge everybody to give yourself 90 days. This should not be a decision that you take years or even a year to make. Life moves too fast for that, and I don't believe that people should be in limbo for that long. So really setting a goal for yourself and saying, hey, in 90 days, if I don't accomplish X, Y, and Z, then I'm going to sit down and have a decision of what the next step should be. So some industries, of course, deals take longer than that. So I'm not saying that revenue, like for example, in healthcare with hospital systems, it can take 8 months to close a deal. So it's not that I'm closing all these deals in 90 days, but the measurable progress and relationships need to have some momentum. And then I guess this is the last one. How many people here set time on your calendar and block your time so nobody can talk to you for at least half a day? Good job. So there's a concept called a clarity break. And that is when you put a chunk of time on your calendar. My business actually closes at 1 p.m. every single Friday. And we do that year round. Part of that is because I want all of our team members to have a clarity break time where nobody can reach them no matter what. And so that gives you time to go for a walk, work out, just sit and drink coffee, whatever it is. But again, a lot of studies have shown that when you actually aren't working on your business, you're much more successful in working on those big problems in the back of your mind. So if you aren't doing that yet and you're having to make a really big decision about direction of your business, I'd highly recommend incorporating those into your schedule to make sure that you're not overworking your brain and not allowing yourself time to think. And then I will leave you with this quote. It's one of my favorite. It can be so hard to decide if you're going to change your business. I was talking to somebody earlier, and she was saying that a lot of people were saying, you can't not do that anymore. That's what you've always done. What we do is not who we are, right? We have to be able to separate ourselves from what our business is, who our target audience, our clients are. That is not who you are. And so making those hard decisions allows you to live a life that you love. So never feel as though you are locked in to a business, brand, trajectory, client base, deliverable, just because it's not what you've always done or what people know you for it. You absolutely can and should change, especially if you're being pulled intrinsically to do something different. And that's it. So I would be happy to answer any questions that people have. Yeah. Thank you.
Great job, Jenny. So just a little bit about your rebrand in terms of, I think, just the stories behind those two founders, hearing a little bit about them. Did you consider, in terms of your niche and your customer market, around like names and associations that mattered to your customers and your team versus ones that resonated with you, and how much that made a difference in the business?
Yeah, great question. So we did a lot of market research to really understand, hey, the buyers we're working with right now, feel representative of the industry, but is that actually who the buyers are? So we went and we actually pulled data on who are the VPs of marketing and the CMOs at healthcare orgs we want to work with. Overwhelmingly, it was women in their 40s. And so then we did some market research understanding, hey, does this story resonate with them? And not only does it resonate with them, but they walk up to our booth and they go, oh, your colors. So the colors, the brand, we were just at a conference last week and we had matching pink Nikes with our cute little vests. So a whole bunch of ahs, and then we need to get a proposal with you. So we did a lot of research to understand, is it just us that like this idea, or is it actually our clients and prospects that will like the idea? Yeah, great question.
All right, thank you so much. So much insight. So my question is around the rebrand as well. So when you rebranded, how did you do that? Was it all at one site, all at one time? With the ones where you actually weren't changing the customer?
Yeah, so we ripped the Band-Aid off. Our launch date was 8/8, which is National Happiness Day. And so we sent an email out the week before. All of our account managers connected with all of our clients. We let them know, hey, we're rebranding. We're so excited. We're launching next week. You'll see a new website. We'll send an email. So we had custom swag packages that we sent physically to all of our clients to arrive on that day. We had a bunch of digital assets that we launched. We had a lot of one-on-one comms that we did. I personally called all of our healthcare clients, and then I called all of our non-healthcare clients to talk about a good breakup. So it was very intentional. We actually tried to launch back in May. That was our goal. We didn't try. Our goal was to launch in May, but we knew that we weren't ready from a tactical execution perspective, so we pushed it until 8/8.
Follow-up question to that. Thank you for that. That's really good to know. So follow-up question. As a founder who doesn't have a lot of resources or money, when you look at that graph that you created about, you know, with all the hats and the bottom that you delegate, how do you deal with that when you're a startup founder and you don't have these options?
Great question. I would still challenge that it is more expensive for you to be spending your time on something that you're not good at than it is to pay somebody else to do it. It is very easy to find a freelancer that's relatively inexpensive at design, at development, at bookkeeping, at whatever it is, right? The first agency that I launched, I tried to do bookkeeping myself for the first 3 months. No, it was so bad. I spent so many hours doing it. I didn't think I had the money to pay somebody else. Then I was like, I don't have the time to not pay somebody to do this. So the thing that I would strongly recommend is make it happen. Whatever that needs to look like, make it happen.
Thank you.
A ton of questions, but the one that is standing out right now is like when you made that transition to like focus on all healthcare exclusively, you mentioned that none of the employees came with you. Can you talk about sort of why that is? And it seems like you're good at storytelling, bringing some clients along, but kind of what was the gap with the employees?
Great question. So whenever I had a business partner, he was in charge of operations and I was in charge of sales and marketing, which meant he ran the culture. And again, like a suit that doesn't fit right, it never felt right for me. But it's very difficult. I have not seen it work effectively for multiple owners to work together to create a culture that feels real and genuine to both people. And so since he was in charge of operations, I allowed him to create the culture. And I'll be honest, some of my employees, I think, did not like having me tell them what to do. Like, I think some of them genuinely did not like a strong female leader. And so it is what it is, and that's fine, but that's not happening on my team and on my watch once I bought out the business. And so I made it very clear, you know, I am, in a nice way, I'm very nice. I wasn't mean about it. But I was just very clear, like, I own the business now, and I focused on our version of culture for the first 3 months. So we created our new core values. We focused on creating our purpose and our vision. And then when we shared it, we were very clear, if this doesn't resonate with you, tell me. You've been so great. Most of our employees at that point had been with us for over 4 years. So it was like, if this doesn't resonate with you, I will help you offboard. We're not gonna, you know, lock your computer the day you tell us you're unhappy. We'll help you find another spot, another agency or in-house, or even just give you 60 days to find another position. So for me, having somebody that was an improper culture fit was the worst part of trying to rebrand. It just doesn't fit. So it was actually a huge blessing that it was 100% turnover, because then I was able to thoroughly vet people whenever they came in to make sure they were a good fit. But it was some long weeks. I will tell you, it was so stressful.
Thank you again. Great presentation, Anna Maria Sacconi. I have a follow-up on that one.
Yeah.
So I love this, and I think it's great. What do you do if you have some things that you do love and you're good at or great at, but it's still very time-consuming, and you could spend your time on other things? Where would you put those in these categories?
Yeah. So a couple of things. I would challenge the good at part if you're truly good at it, if it's very time-consuming, only because the things that I'm going to be honest, I did this deck in 20 minutes at 11 a.m. today. Because I'm very good at decks, right? Like I'm so good. I don't even have to think about it. I've been working on the story for the last 2 weeks in the back of my mind, and I sat down and cranked out the slides in the right order. I am very good at that. So my definition of good at means I can get into flow state and crank it out really quickly. Now there's some things within the operations of a business where that just isn't the case, right? It just is going to take longer just because of the function. And in that case, I think you have to just look at your hours you're putting into it and figure out if your hours are best spent there or somewhere else.
I have question number 2, Jenny. So many follow-ups. I think it just depends on the person in terms of, you know, your thoughts on, you know, co-founder, multiple founders, solo founder. It sounds like there's probably some things that you would have done differently or that you've learned from.
Yeah.
Maybe can you talk to the audience about, like, if you were considering a co-founder, like, what types of things or what questions or values that you need to get ahead of time to know, hey, this is going to be, you know, as much like a relationship or a marriage. Like, how do we understand if this is going to work long term, or just, hey, I'm team, do it on your own. It's a lot easier. Just any thoughts on kind of co-founder
question.
versus solo founder?
Excellent question. So I am team date before you marry, 100%. I would never start a business with a co-founder ever again, because just like dating, people can say stuff that isn't true once you get into the trenches. So instead, I have a philosophy. For example, I have some really senior folks on my team. They have interest in buying into the organization. Awesome, let's work together for 2 years, and then we can revisit that conversation. And they all understand the value proposition and the reason why they would want to do that. And so those conversations are beginning to come up. But I would never, I thought my business partner and I were 100% aligned. 100%. I was like, you do this, I do that. Turns out I sold and I had to manage the work. Like it didn't all work out the way that on paper we thought it was going to work out. And I think that's super common in business relationships and partnerships. So date before you marry.
Loved your presentation, particularly the emotional intelligence part. But I'd also like to ask a question for those of us in the audience who are in cyclical businesses.
Good question.
Particularly people who might already be headed into a recession cycle.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for us on reading the signs of the times and fitting it into your 90-day framework?
That's an excellent question, and I have 2 states of mind about it. First, I am an ever optimist. I always believe that things are going to work out. I always think I'm going to figure it out. Things will be great. And one of the reasons I believe that is my track record shows that I can always figure it out, right? So my key of reading the industry and understanding what's going to happen is have people on my leadership team that are more like the wet blanket types. Like they are the conservative ones. They're the ones that are like, oh, you're joyful about that? Yeah, no, let's talk about all the bad things that are going to happen. And that balances it, and we love each other's perspective and love that we do it, but I just know I am not a person that can do that. I have to fill myself with positivity in order to lead in the way that I need to lead. So I have built a leadership team that really understands all the different scenarios if revenue were to drop, how we would recover. So we have all these scenario planning pieces in place, but I'm not the one doing it.
Hey, hi, I'm
Hi.
Kumar. I'm from SLO.
Nice to meet you.
Me too. So, while studying my childhood days, my professor, his name is Naren, so he used to tell 21 days is the really good time to get into the track.
Okay.
So, do you think 21 days is the good, or the 90 days, how it's going to be affected?
So 21 days to do what?
As you said, the timeline for the 90 days. So, I heard from him 21 days.
Got it.
So,
So I personally, I'd love to hear more information about his perspective on that, because I like to lead with the thought of, I might be wrong. But I view it as 21 days in a lot of industries is too short to make meaningful connections and to really see if you have traction in what you're trying to do. For example, in my space, I often have to book meetings 3 weeks out. And so it'd be very difficult to even understand if I'm getting meaningful progress towards my goals in that sort of a time frame. Now, I could see if you were e-commerce or something where it was like really quick signals of what's working or not. But for a lot of industries, I think 90 days is probably more accurate.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
You mentioned a book called Traction. I just looked it up. There's 3 different authors. Which one do you recommend?
It's an orange cover, I believe. Hang on.
Well, I wanted to buy audio.
Yes, it's Gino. Good job. Gino Wickman.
Okay.
Gino Wickman. Yep.
Thank you.
Wickman. Wickman. Gino, Gino. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great read just to get your head in the right spot.
Hi, I really enjoyed your presentation. I have something called fear factor where I think of all the worst scenarios. And then,
You could be on my leadership team. That would be great.
yeah, can you speak to that at all?
So for me, I think that a leadership team or running a business where you have both perspectives is the healthiest way. Because in general, if you're leading and making your decisions based off of fear, you're not going to be growth-minded, you're going to be protective-minded. And typically that's okay if you're trying to have, a small business that maybe generates enough income to pay your bills. But if you're trying to grow a business with a team, it's very difficult to lead with a fear-based mindset, and it's difficult to sell with a fear-based mindset. Those are the 2 things, right? Like, I think I'm successful at selling because people like joy and optimism, and I try to bring that into the presentation. And so I think if I were to lead with fear, it would just be a very different conversation. So.
Does it creep into your own as far as starting your business? Were you thinking
No.
about all the scenarios?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, I literally,
Wouldn't go there.
I don't know what's wrong with my brain, but I just always think I can do it. So I don't know what happened. Like, maybe I was dropped as a baby, but I had a 11-month-old when I decided to start this business. And I was like, awesome, let's do it. This is gonna be fun. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Candace. What is your day-to-day routine that you do for yourself to get yourself ready to be out in the world and talking to people all day and motivating people and motivate yourself?
Yeah.
I know I sound like I'm trying to motivate myself.
I
while I'm
know,
saying
I
this,
love it.
But yeah, what do you do?
I love it. So I've really gone through a journey because of my health. So for the first 6 months of the year, I didn't get off the couch. So I gained 15 pounds. I was eating really unhealthy because I was eating for comfort, not for health, really in a bad place. So since then, I've been really focused on longevity and energy. And so my routines that I've put into place are things like a walk every morning, right? Getting out with some fresh air, lifting weights at least 4 times a week. I've switched to a vegan diet mostly, which, whoa, I know, but it's really yummy, and actually I have more energy. So I would have thought I was crazy if I told myself a year ago that I was going to do that. So really but that's for me. So it's just identifying what gives you energy intrinsically when you do those activities and writing them down, because I know one woman, she swears by taking a nightly bubble bath. Oh, that sounds terrible to me. But she loves it, and she tells all the entrepreneurs that that's what she does. So I don't think there's one answer for anybody, but it's just going throughout your week and maybe just writing down throughout your week all the things that you do that just feed you energy, and then try to do those more. Maybe it's not even every day, but just more.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What does your leadership circle look like outside of your
Good question.
business?
Very good question. Wait, outside of my business? Or
Well, outside and inside, because there's a part where you have people that are inside that build you up, but there's another side of your circle outside that also build you up, but in a different way.
Yeah. Great question. So I view it as 3 different components. First, within my business. So within my business, I have a true leadership team that's 3 people. So I have myself, a woman that runs all of the operations and kills it, and then a gentleman that is the director of finance and operations. Then underneath that, I have specialty managers. So they manage all of the functions. That's within my business. I also, though, have just launched an advisory board. I always thought an advisory board was something super serious. You had a specific process you had to follow. Like, you couldn't say the wrong thing in there or else you'd, I don't know. I was just terrified of it. But then somebody told me the concept. They're like, no, Jenny, it's just a group of people that you trust and you meet with on a regular basis and you design it whatever you need. So I said, well, that's way better. So I literally said, okay, I want to create an advisory board of people that are really well connected in healthcare and all of these disparate sub-industry sectors that I'm trying to get into, people that love the brand, love our mission, and meet with them once a quarter just to talk about industry trends, our marketing positioning, introductions that we want. It's been amazing. They're texting me and introducing me to people. So an advisory board is whatever you want it to be. That's one big thing. And then the third thing is I have really begun focusing friendship groups around entrepreneurs. I'm still friends with all of my other friends that, you know, work at WashU and all of these fabulous places. They're not entrepreneurs, but I've been very intentional at making friends with entrepreneurs because their lifestyles are legit different, right? Like the trips that entrepreneurs go on, the way that they view problems, the way that they view people as a means for connection and to solve problems, it totally has shifted my mindset in the way that I grow my business. I started investing in real estate because of my entrepreneur friendship group. Because I'm like, if you own businesses, again, going back to like, I'm as smart as you are, why don't I have a real estate portfolio? So for me, it just really shifted my POV of how I looked at the world. So those are the 3 components. I have one more concept I want to share. I need to look at the name of the book, but this one concept has stuck with me, and it's called upper limiting yourself.
The Big Leap.
Good job, The Big Leap. The Big Leap. Read it. The concept is called upper limiting yourself. So if you find yourself in a cycle where, why can I never get my business over $500,000? Or why do all of my relationships within my business or personal life always end up going this one path or trajectory? The concept is called upper limiting yourself because you have an intrinsic belief that you do not and cannot do more. And so a lot of us subconsciously self-sabotage to keep yourself at a level that's comfortable because you don't think you deserve more. Now, you never may recognize that you think that, but it has been an amazing concept for me to recognize, sort of like the advisory board. Why was I not doing an advisory board before, right? I was upper limiting myself and my belief systems, thinking that I was not the right kind of person to have an advisory board. So I highly recommend reading that book also because it really tackles the psychology, not just of business, but also just success in life, right? In every aspect of your life. It's definitely worth a read. So good job knowing the name. Yes.
Amazing. Can we give a round of applause to Jenny?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, folks.